All right, very good. So now I am going to let you know a little bit about what's on my tiny little mind today. All right. I know, I don't know how many of you have ever heard this expression because I don't think too many people have. We do not live by bread alone. I'm sure you haven't heard that one before, right? But in some places they say we don't live by cake alone, or by ice cream alone, or by grivenas alone. But if you look at me, you might say, I've tested that interpretation thoroughly. Anyway, but the Torah means something deeper than this. The Torah is saying that bread keeps us alive, but that God's word tells us what life is for. Right? That's important. In Devarim chapter 8, which we read today, which we would have read today, but I explained, Moshe reminds Bnei Israel that God allowed hunger and then provided manna so that they would learn that human life depends on more than food. Yes, first you got hungry, then I gave you food. I gave you food, says God. Survival matters. It does. We all know that. But meaningful living requires faith, purpose, and responsibility. Doesn't require bread or cake or grivenas. It requires purpose, faith, and responsibility. This raises life's great question that none of us ever ask. Why are we here? What's the meaning of life? Why are we here? We often spend so much time trying to get a longer life and at the same time we want to look younger as we get older. We spend more time, more money, and to be more comfortable doing these things. We do so much of that, we too often forget to live the great life we are already living. Just think about it. I know some of us have challenges. We all do. I mean, I shouldn't say some of us. Who doesn't? But think about how people lived 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. How would you live? How would you like to be living in Egypt without air conditioning or without a microwave oven? How would you like that? Or a toaster? We live so much better than they did. The Pharaoh in Egypt, Paro himself, didn't have it as good as we do. The worst of us have it better than Paro. We need to remember that and always thank God for that, because God gave us the wherewithal to be able to do it. This stuff didn't just appear out of thin air. We invented most of it, but only because we were given the ability to do that. Go back now, the newly freed Bnei Israel. They didn't have they weren't ready for responsibilities of a prosperous land. They had no idea what that was going to be like. Think about it. They didn't know. They were walking in the desert all these years. For this generation, all but 3 of them who crossed over the river, only 3 of them remembered being slaves in Egypt. All the rest had it all easy for them. They got water, they got manna, they didn't have to do anything. Now all of a sudden they're going to have to do things. Now they got responsibility, but they do have a very prosperous land. It's called a desert. Remember what Israel looked like before Israel took it over and planted things and got things to grow in the sand? How could they do? They didn't know how to do this. Before becoming partners with God in creation, we needed maturity, education, and practice. Doing what? Using freedom wisely. We now had freedom for the first time in history. We had to learn how to do everything for ourselves because nobody was going to do anything for us. So the desert became a 40-year classroom. There were no desks, no air conditioning, and apparently they had to eat the same school lunch every single day. It was called manna. But God provided everything that was needed while leaving enough uncertainty to test their trust and their character. It's true. Manna interrupted the ordinary rule that bread comes through sweat, the sweat of the brow. Bnei Israel had no choice but to get manna. Why? They're walking for 40 years through a desert, through a place where they couldn't have grown anything, not because it wouldn't grow. It might have. They might have figured it out because they didn't have time to plant it, harvest it, and then bake it and let it grow and take. They didn't have time. They kept walking and walking and walking. When were they going to do any of this stuff? So they had to get the manna. Each person would gather enough manna every single day to sustain them for the day. Except for Shabbos, they got to get 2. And they learned that security ultimately comes not from them, but from God. Because they didn't have what we have, a fully stocked pantry. And you want to know how bad it is? How many of us have a fully stocked pantry and children and grandchildren come over and they say, "You got nothing here to eat"? Can you imagine? Anyway, the test was whether this God-given abundance would produce gratitude or entitlement. Am I thanking God for what I have and what God's giving me, or am I entitled to it? The answer was painfully human. They complained, they complained, they complained, they complained. And did I say they complained? Even food that came from heaven got poor reviews in their Yelp reviews. The ancient Aramaic translation of this parsha makes the point clear and understandable. It's not, the Aramaic translation is not really a translation, it's a commentary. But the bread supports our existence. But God's word supports how we live. Food sustains the body, Torah sustains the soul. Our spiritual gifts are heart, mind, and soul. They are. They allow us to love, create, repair what is broken, and serve something larger than our appetites. Otherwise, we are merely animals with credit cards and strong opinions about brunch. Think about it. Sounds funny, but that's all we would be. Yes, much of life is devoted to accumulating wealth and possessions, and there's nothing wrong with that. Money is useful, but when getting more becomes the purpose of life, the means have mistaken themselves for the end. Monetary gain is not the purpose of life. Yes, it's fine to do it, but it's not the purpose of life. Oy. Our endless search for the quick buck reflects that confusion that we have. Everybody's looking for the quick buck. We want prosperity without patience. We want reward without responsibility. We ask for a raise 2 weeks after we start. We're not getting paid enough. And the worst thing is, how many want to win the lottery without even buying a ticket? The desert offered another model. With daily needs provided, Israel could focus on their family, their community, to study, and to care for those unable to gather for themselves. Remember, there were people who were very senior, couldn't go out and gather their own manna. They were ill, they couldn't go out and get, so others did it for them. It was important. The goal is not idleness. It is the freedom from making material gain the center of our existence. Boy, is that a powerful thing. We are free to make material gain the center of our existence or not. Therefore, this week's Torah reading asks us to consider what prosperity is that it produces in us. What is it? Are we becoming more grateful, generous, and faithful, or merely better equipped to complain in 16K high definition? It's amazing. My TV isn't sharp enough. I need a better TV. I need a brighter TV. The football games don't look as real as they should. My car isn't as comfortable as it should be. The seats aren't what I like. They use too much of this. It's too much of that. Murmur, 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 murmur. That's why in this week's Torah reading, it says to do the benching, to bless God after you eat. So we never forget that all of this comes from God, because God gives us the ability to have it. Our calling is to use our hearts, our minds, and our souls to strengthen our community, to pursue justice, and become God's true partners in creation that is ongoing in the present. Creation hasn't ended. We're partners in this. May we savor God's word, not just listen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Pay attention. Maybe it should say savor instead. We should savor God's word as least as much as the sweet wine and the fresh challah that we eat on Shabbat, because that really does set a higher bar. And with that, I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and an Am Yisroel Chai.